Hello, my name is Patrick John Mills and I'm an artist. And in this video I wanted to share with you some of my creative process. Here I am just putting some paint on the canvas and starting the painting. Right here you'll notice that I have put some lemon yellow right in that center point, and now I'm starting to go over and mix a yellow ochre deep. So I have the lemon yellow, which is a really opaque pigment that offers a foundational kind of sense of light from underneath that kind of later will glow through, similar to how Rembrandt has here. You'll know that space of that underpainting that glows out, and that really is like just knowing your pigments and which ones to use. I've also arced out the space. I was just kind of thinking about his composition and how to create kind of a compositional system, I guess. So I'm putting in two colors in here. There's a purple and a magenta, and I put those two colors just so that they can pulsate. And I've also added an ivory black just because it's got a low tint power and I like the depth of that. Here are two palette knives. Really what I'm doing is I'm blending and I'm using the very large one, and while I'm moving the paint around and making the paint just kind of smearing it, I'm also removing the paint so it doesn't become too thick, so that later on when I paint wet on wet, the painting won't slip away on me. It will make sure that the consistency of that layer is just enough so that I can move the paint around and not make it muddy. If you have too much paint on your surface, and you start brushing on top of it, everything kind of slips and slides and becomes messy. Right now I'm using a really like a household paintbrush, one that you'd probably be using in your for decorating your house. I use these 2-inch wide painters, household paintbrush, and I'm just kind of moving the paint around, getting the layers. I'm not trying to get detail. I'm kind of creating the paint to get the tones and the movement and the flow of how I want everything to be working, and just kind of feathering it out and making it so that I get beautiful textures. Detail comes out of like freedom and kind of harnessing a little bit of chaos or unexpected. Later this will become really apparent, and you'll see how just having a real loose kind of freedom to your style of painting really works. Here I'm using like a very large palette knife, and here are the paintbrushes I was using. One is more light and one is more dark. I kind of use one of the paintbrushes to really focus on the dark or the negative space, and another one of the paintbrushes to be more the opaque. And so the dark paintbrush is really all the transparent pigments, the purple and the magenta and the ivory black, and I'm mixing it in a kind of a smoky way and very loose. And then the other paintbrush, I'm rendering the opposite space, so that right now I'm picking up my white paintbrush or my light, and I use those in oppositions between positive and negative and light and dark. And now I'm just kind of feathering out the paint and making it very loose and making it so that the paint is not too thick, and just getting those, seems kind of like a little bit wild and crazy, but I've been painting for a long time, so it makes it, it's kind of misleading, but you'll see later on I actually know what the hell I'm doing. trying to create a sense of calm and making the paint not too busy, so not everything is so turbulent. You need things to be at rest so that other parts of the painting can kind of have a voice, so that you don't overwork everything. Here I am going over and using the large palette knife and kind of scraping and kind of leaving kind of marks where I start kind of like putting it on, kind of like cream cheese on a bagel, I suppose. And that just comes with experimenting and having fun and knowing when you kind of get that magic touch. And then I'm going around with the large paintbrush to kind of soften and make the painting calm. I find using a really large palette really helpful, and it helps you keep your paint very clean and very organized. Now I'm moving into starting putting the vase, and I've gotten the freedom that I wanted in the background, and now I'm using kind of smaller brushes and kind of focusing in on the meditative kind of the elements that I want to put in there. Again, the painting, the foundational layer underneath is not too thick. It's very generous, but it's right on that verge of being generous, but not like super thick. And so I'm able to like add the detail and the highlights and the touches and start adding the form without kind of getting lost in the mud or the thickness of the painting. And right now I'm going over and I'm adding some flower petals using another brush, and just I reload and I make sure, and I spin my brush. I kind of go back again and add a little bit more paint, and I keep my paintbrush fresh. I don't overwork it. Here I'm using the palette knife to kind of add a variety of different ways of applying the paint to create like a stimulation for the visual eye. And I'm also using some of the colors that are in the petals and bringing it into the vase and onto the different parts of, you want to keep your color kind of a spider's web all around so that your palette and your colors are all kind of communicating everywhere. I go over and I make sure the tonal values are kind of consistent so that everything kind of has a homogeneous kind of values of the paint, and just kind of add the different things that I love. And here I have a 2x6 piece of wood, and I kind of lift the painting up just so that I'm not obstructed by anything. I have a nice clean access for my hand and my arm, and I just make those small little adjustments so that there's nothing obstructing me in my positioning of working on the actual canvas itself. I keep working it in, scraping away, but also adding so that it's really not a sticker, but it breathes, and I take the underpainting and add the layers to create that kind of, I guess, a base or a foundation to the bottom of the painting to give it like a gravity, so it feels like the actual composition has a bit of weight. There's a little bit of the detail of the sky that I just showed you. I'm working around with a palette knife. I scrape away a little bit to add to the transparency, and then I add a little bit more to go over and create the opaqueness and the density of the vase to give like a center point. I go back with my paintbrush, kind of sweep it and dust it off so that everything has that kind of airiness and the emotional landscape or the emotional freedom that I want. And then I'm kind of playing with the horizon line and kind of blending that out and kind of playing with kind of the atmosphere or the emotional depth that I want to create in the painting. I wanted to really kind of communicate a stillness and a poetry with the flowers, how they're connected and they're in this vase and they're in this delicate confined space, kind of like a nest, two birds in a nest, and how they are kind of like when lovers sleep in a bed together, how they choose to share a life together and love. And that's really, but life can be pretty overwhelming at times, but yet there they are holding hands, loving, being connected, celebrating their connection and their union. Flowers only live for a brief moment in time in a vase because their roots are cut out. And life is like that. Life is really every moment is so precious, and it's important to just take a moment and really appreciate how lucky we are to be alive and all the complexities of life. Here I am going over and cleaning up the edges of the canvas, just tidying it up and making it so that everything is, I use a thicker canvas and then paint the edges with some of the leftover paint. It's on my brush and kind of make sure it's all the way I want it. And then here I am signing it. I sign it backwards just because I kind of work my way from the right to the left and make sure I don't run out of space. And my name is Patrick John Mills, and hope you like this video. Don't know what else really to say, to be honest. I love painting, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Here I am just plugging away, and then I use the back end of the paintbrush and I carve it in. So I just kind of engrave my name into the thickness of the canvas. Again, here's some of the close-up details of the sky and the painting, and there's the finished piece. There's my palette at the end, and the palette knives and brushes, and here's a mini tour of my studio. I really hope that you found this inspiring and that you go off into your studio and you make a big mess and live, love art, and just really just have a great time painting. Have a beautiful day.